Could everybody mute? Except
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our council meeting, our public council meeting here in the city of Mount Pearl for May the 5th, 2020. Folks, you see before you, I don't think there's anything outside the kit. You see your agenda. Can I get a motion, please, to move the agenda? Councillor Stoyles and Councillor Ledwell, thank you very, very much, folks. Now we look to the minutes of the public council meeting on April 21st, 2 weeks ago. Any errors or omissions? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to adopt the minutes from April 21st? Moved by Councillor Fry, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Contrary-minded, carried. Thank you very much. Any business arising from those minutes? And please quote under the action report or the minutes, the item number for purposes of discussion. Well, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to move on then, folks, to our next section. We have three proclamations this week. A very important one to lead off, you know, considering the times that we live in and considering that mental health has evolved in the last few years to be, I think, of almost equal footing with physical health. And the two are tied, but it's very important that we recognize what everybody's going through these days during the pandemic. And I know situations and circumstances are not ideal for everybody, and it's a bit stressful these days. So I'll read the proclamation. Whereas mental health is an essential part of everyone's health and well-being, and whereas Mental Health Week has been hosted by the Canadian Mental Health Association in communities in Canada for over 69 years, and whereas all people in Canada need to promote, protect, and nurture their mental health, and whereas promoting social connection is a very important aspect of human life and an effective way to protect mental health. Whereas in these days of the COVID-19 pandemic, our community members may be experiencing further difficulties maintaining their mental health. And whereas in these days of social distancing, we as a community are experiencing great challenges to maintaining our social connections. And whereas the City of Mount Pearl has a responsibility to promote mental wellness, particularly at a time of increased social distancing and social isolation, therefore be it resolved that I, the Mayor of Mount Pearl, on behalf of my colleagues, hereby proclaim the week of May 4th to the 10th, 2020, as the Canadian Mental Health Association's Mental Health Week here in the City of Mount Pearl. And I encourage all citizens to join me in underlining the importance of social distancing for mental health. And I would invite council now. Would anybody, you know, ordinarily we would have somebody come to our meeting to speak to this week, and usually it's well attended. Anybody want to offer any comments from members of council? Councillor Fry.
yes, I just wanted to say I was really pleased to see in this proclamation the wording mental wellness, because a lot of times people think of mental health week, and they think of it as a diagnosed illness, but mental health actually affects everybody. You know, I always liken it to the if you sprain your ankle, you're not physically well, but you don't have an illness or disease. And everybody at some point in their lives will go through stressful situations, like now with this, you know, this pandemic and isolation and the stress that's involved in that sort of thing. Everybody's mental wellness is affected. So when it comes to mental health, it's not just illnesses, diagnosed diseases or illnesses and mental illnesses, it's mental wellness. And I was really pleased to see that wording there.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else have any comments?
Your Worship, if I could.
Yes, please, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, valid points that Councillor Fry made, and you're right. I mean, we have always emphasized mental wellness in the City of Mount Pearl, at least for my time on council. And no doubt this time under the circumstances that we're under, it's even more so that we emphasize this, encourage people to reach out and avail for all of the services that are there. And also just to remind our residents that, you know, if they have time in their day, to make the time to reach out to someone that they figure might be in need. Certainly once they double the bubble on Friday and the weekend, you could certainly see the positive impact that had on mental health with with all the posts on online. So it's evident this has been a real, mental struggle with people trying to adjust to a new workplace reality for those that are still fortunate enough to be working, and also for those who are, in a financially different spot right now. So I think this is a very timely thing to bring forth today, a proclamation, and I certainly support it wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Okay, the next proclamation is Ovarian Cancer Canada's proclamation related to World Ovarian Cancer Day, which is May 8th, 2020. I believe the 8th is what, late this week, folks? The 8th would be Friday? Yes, it would be. And I think a year ago, we had Susan Glenn come in here. And Susan's been a very active member in ovarian cancer and the organization and supporting those with ovarian cancer. In fact, she is also a survivor as well as somebody who's experienced it firsthand. So this World Ovarian Cancer Day is a tribute to Susan. Whereas 2,800 Canadian women will be newly diagnosed with ovarian cancer this year, and whereas ovarian is the 5th most common cancer for women and the most serious women's cancer, and whereas ovarian cancer has no reliable screening test, and symptoms are often confused with other less severe illnesses, and whereas as many as 23% of women with ovarian cancer have an inherited genetic mutation, whereas genetic testing is a way to identify people at high risk before they develop ovarian cancer. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, the Mayor of Mount Pearl, on behalf of my colleagues and council, do hereby proclaim May 8th, 2020 as World Ovarian Cancer Day, and I encourage all citizens of Mount Pearl and the province to talk to their health providers about ovarian cancer and seek to learn more about the disease. And I fix the signature on behalf of council. Folks, anybody else would like to chime in? Or, hey, Isabel.
These happen to be 2 proclamations that are important to me. As you can see, I'm wearing teal today. Teal is the color for ovarian cancer. And Susan Glynn, as you mentioned, is extraordinary. And she's been such an advocate for ovarian cancer and ovarian cancer awareness. And she developed a poster. It's called the 4 Bs. And those are the 4 symptoms to look out for. And it's bloating, bladder, bowel, and blah. And those are the 4 words that describe the symptoms of ovarian cancer. So if anybody experiences any of those symptoms, it's certainly something to seek some attention, some medical attention for. And Susan is still going through her chemotherapy, and she's still fighting like anything for to create awareness. And it's people like that the world needs more of. So thank you to Susan, and thank you for this proclamation. It's very important.
Well said. Anybody else would like to make a comment, please?
Your Worship.
All right. Oh,
Councillor
it's
Power.
late. Oh, yes. Go ahead, Andrea, or Councillor Power, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to echo that. Isabel, it's funny. I had the poster, the 4Bs poster in front of me as well. So I guess just to add to what Councillor Fry said, I think it's important for women to be self-advocates and to really demand that extra level of healthcare. I know that a lot of the issues that we deal with, including ovarian cancer, come with very mild symptoms. But if they're persistent symptoms, they need to be looked at and they need to be investigated. So be that self-advocate. And if you hear of your friends or family complaining of ongoing symptoms, then make sure that you help them advocate for themselves as well and get the testing that they require. So the only person that's going to look after you is you. So I encourage everybody to do that and check out the website because they have some great information on there. Thanks so much.
Well said. Thank you very much, Councillor Power. Anybody else got a comment? Deputy Mayor, do you have the proclamation next for economic development handy? I've got to leave the room for a minute, so I want to excuse myself. Jim, would you mind reading the proclamation?
It would be my pleasure, Your Worship.
Excuse me for a second, folks. Go ahead. Thank you.
City of Mount Pearl resolution for Economic Development Week, May 4th to the 9th, 2020. Whereas the International Economic Development Council is the largest professional economic development organization of its kind, and the Economic Development Association of Canada is the national organization dedicated to serving economic developers. And whereas the Economic Development Association of Newfoundland and Labrador is the provincial organization of economic developers pursuing excellence in the field by striving to enhance the professional competence of economic development officers to advance economic development as a distinct, recognized, and self-governing profession, and to contribute to the province's economic well-being. And whereas economic development associations provides leadership and support for communities, members, and partners through conferences, training courses, best practices, awards of excellence, and Mount Pearl is certainly involved with all of those, and initiatives such as the Certified Economic Developer designation. And whereas the field of economic development is diverse, with economic developers having a unique set of skill sets and engage in a wide variety of settings, tailoring their approach based on the community's needs. And whereas the City of Mount Pearl recognizes and celebrates that economic developers promote economic well-being and quality of life for their communities through community development, attracting new investment, supporting and retaining local businesses, promoting job growth, and encouraging a stable tax base, and that business support and development is critical to the vitality of our communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor and City Council of the City of Mount Pearl do hereby recognize May 4th to May 9th, 2020 as Economic Development Week in the City of Mount Pearl, and remind individuals of the importance of economic development in our communities. Dated today, May the 5th of 2020. And Your Worship, I see that Councillor Antle would like to speak to this, so I'll turn it over to Councillor Antle.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Locke. This is certainly a timely proclamation on economic development in these COVID times. And I notice our economic development team is really out front and center. Most times I go to some businesses here within the City of Mount Pearl, as soon as I say I'm from the City of Mount Pearl, they know Jeremy. So hats off to Jeremy. Jeremy's doing a fabulous job. And same thing with Brandon. Just this week, I was involved with the food banks, and Brandon helped out. Our economic development team is doing well here within the city, and hats off to them. Thank you very much.
Well
And
said, sir.
And to our manager of economic development, Cassie.
Anybody
Your
else
Worship,
got a comment?
Yeah, further to Councillor Antle, I mean, his points are dead on, and we all know that that our staff in the Economic Development Department, have been recognized for the outstanding work, some of the initiatives that they've taken on over the last 2 years. So this is it's great that we bring in this resolution this week, and also the kudos that Councillor Antle just recognized of the fine people that work at the City of Mount Pearl. I know we've brought in data here in terms of business growth, business retention, the outreach that we're doing now during the COVID crisis. It's all valuable to let the business community in the City of Mount Pearl know that we appreciate them. They're a vital part of our community. They're involved in so many things outside of the business world in terms of sponsorship and community activities and helping out with community cleanups and the like. So I think this is a very appropriate resolution we brought here today, and I support it again wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Final thoughts, anybody? And as I leave to go to the next item in the agenda, I also want to say to Director Pittman and all of your staff in the economic development on that team, you are making a great contribution to our city and to our community and to our organization. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I had a curbside pickup. A cup of tea was delivered to my door, but the delivery driver did not want to come into into the office and get caught in our council meeting. Okay, the next item, the next committee reports, infrastructure and public works. Who do we have tonight? Councillor
I
Stoyles,
will be
thank you.
starting. Yep. The first item is the committee was advised that the tender for the 2020 street markings closed on March 13th. We received 3 bids and we're recommending the lowest bid, the provincial paving markings, at $386,625.90, HST included, and I so move.
It is moved and it is seconded by Councillor Ledwell. Any discussion or any commentary? Maybe could we hear from the director a little bit about the timing of this? I guess there's really two big pieces in terms of this contract. One is the truck that is used to very efficiently and very quickly paint the lines. And then there's things, Director Antle, like the intersections and that. And I guess my question is, for the benefit of the public, you know, what are we thinking in terms of timelines for both of those things?
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Timelines, first off, are dependent on weather. So we need the proper temperature and dry road conditions to fix traffic paint. So the intention is to focus on intersections first and schedule the main line painting subsequently. We would expect right now that our tender calls for completion of our spring, we'll call it our first line painting, by the end of June. Generally speaking, that will start before that. So if we move towards a circumstance that we might be into the circumstances of late May or early June, and the weather permits, we'll start it earlier than that.
Thank you, sir, very much. Anybody else got a question? Okay, I'll call the motion. All in favor? And contrary-minded, and motion carried. Thank you. Back to you, Councillor Stoyles.
The next item is the tender for the 2020 video inspection services, and that closed on April 23rd. And the scope of the work for this is the tender is to be provided for video inspections for city projects for this coming season. And again, the lowest bidder, we've received 3 bids. The lowest bidder was Alfonso Group at $34,183, including taxes, and I so move.
It is moved by Councillor Stoyles and seconded by Councillor Ledwell. Further thoughts, council? And hearing no commentary questions, I'll call the motion. All in favor? Those opposed? And motion is carried, Ms. Lewis. Thank you. Back to you, Councillor.
The next item for me, Your Worship, is the community was advised that the drawings on St. David's Avenue requirement for the water and sewer, storm sewer, asphalt, curved sidewalk, and the design, there was a minor adjustment to that, and we're recommending that that adjustment will be added into the design fee and for Dillon Consulting, and the amount is $1,943.50 and tax included. And this has to do with, I guess, putting a washroom down there in for the change of the scope of the work. And I so move.
Again, moved by Councillor Stoyles, seconded by Councillor Ledwell. Councillor Antle, you have a question?
Yeah, I certainly support this endeavor, but one of the quick questions I have, and hopefully we can get it straight, I'd like to see we're going to have a washroom down St. David's Park, but will these be open? Like, we have washrooms all over the city right now that aren't open, such as up in Powers Pond and sometimes down on Smallwood Drive, this Recplex. You know, and we have these washrooms and they're not open. So we're going to put a washroom up in St. David's and that's not going to be open also? Just a quick question, thanks.
Is this going to come from Public Works or is it going to come from Community Development? I see Director Antle first.
Your Worship and Councillor Antle, this actual change order fee is for the design where we're proposing to put a stub, we call it, which is a piece off of our water line that we're upgrading on St. David's Avenue to permit the possible construction of a washroom facility that might be part of the scope of work for the smart accessible playground that we also have under an RFP circumstance at this point in time. This is not for the actual washroom building. This is for the infrastructure work in the event that we anticipate the installation of a new washroom facility. So this is, we're using our foresight to recognize that the time to put in the infrastructure right now in the ground is now when we do the work on St. David's Avenue.
Yeah, I see. I did see that, but you know, same thing. If you put a washroom down there, you know, the point is, are we going to make sure that's? And I guess this is future down the road. If we put a washroom there, let's make sure that they open these places up.
Certainly understand and appreciate, and I expect that will be the circumstance that these washrooms, if we get to that point, they'd be considered to be available for use to the public at all times.
Okay, Councillors Stoyles and Ledwell have put a motion on the floor. I'll call the question. All in favor? And those opposed? And we have a carried motion. Thank you so much.
I'm going to turn it over to my colleague.
Thank you, Councillor Stoyles, and thank you, Your Worship. The next item for us, folks, is regarding the Kenmount Hill development. And as you might recall, back in July of 2019, we received a proposal from CBCL related to the system assessment for the water system assessment engineering services for that particular development. The value of the proposal was $6,325 HST included, and the scope of the project included things like confirmation of demands for both current and future setups in the area in terms of water, confirmation that the twinning of the existing Kenmount Hill tank would be adequate for covering current and future needs, and things like carrying out a hydraulic assessment of the Farrell Drive pumps as well as the transmission main to determine if upgrades are required. So there was a lot of analysis and review that had to happen there. And again, the value of the proposal was $6,325 HST included. Following that, there was some additional scope of work that was added to the project. The additional scope of work included an option for having a dedicated new supply line from the pump house to the water tanks to review the hydraulic design and sizing of the required supply line. So this initial work, HST included, amounts to about $2,300. So it was proposed that the change order that we're bringing forth here tonight would be $2,300 to bring the contract value now to a total of $8,625. In fact, the motion here this evening is that we recommend approval for the original proposal from CBCL at $6,325 HST included. And now we're adding change order number 1 here for the additional scope. And that's an addition of $2,300, including HST, and I so move.
It is moved by Councillor Ledwell, second by Councillor Stoyles. So within the motion, it's 2 pieces for a total of $8,625. This is an investment in the growth of our city. Council, any comments or any questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And those opposed? And motion carried. Thank you, sir.
The next item for us, Your Worship, is a contract award, but it's a kind of an adjustment to that contract award. It's for the Topsail Road Storm Sewer Assessment and Outfall Upgrading. Council will recall at our meeting of April 7th, 2020, we were advised that we had a request for proposals for professional consultant services for the Kenmount Hill Phase 5 Topsail Road Storm Sewer Assessment and Outfall Upgrading. That request for proposals process closed on March 10th, 2020. We received 6 proposals, and the lowest bidder was CBCL Limited, and the lowest amount that they bid, of course, was $60,927.25, which is HST included, and was within the budget allotted for this particular piece of work. Upon further review of some of the calculations that were contained in the bid with the consultant, it was actually determined that HST had not been included on a portion of the base fees that were part of their bid. Now, we did do some extra review there. Confirmation was made that the HST amount that was increased there still made CBCL the lowest bidder and brought it in within budget. But the new amount is $64,388.50, including HST. And at the end of the day, we recommend approval, and I so move.
It is moved by Councillor Ledwell and seconded by Councillor Stoyles. Council, thanks for that clarification, by the way, Councillor Ledwell. Any questions, comments further? No? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? And contrabinded? And it's been carried. Thank you.
Our next item, Your Worship, is an update on some public works in our city. And of course, as we all know, our staff, or between our senior staff and our public works division, and of course, our health and safety officer, we are making every effort to work safely during this pandemic time to protect all of our staff from the threat of COVID-19, but also to make sure that we offer the services that the city of Mount Pearl is famous for. So just an update on some things that are happening. Pothole repairs are ongoing. Of course, we all know there's lots of potholes around this time of year, and our staff are working diligently there. The regular pickup of household garbage continues. The recycling, of course, we restarted that, and the collection is underway. Sidewalk and trail sweeping is underway. I know council will be happy to hear that. And repair of some street signs is also underway. Public works crews have covered and closed some of the public trash cans that exist on our trailways and on our streets. And what we've done is put in place one of the home garbage carts that are picked up in our household collection. That makes it a bit easier, of course, for our staff to be able to collect the garbage from the receptacles in a safe manner. Water sampling and testing is ongoing. Fire hydrant repairs are ongoing. We're continuing, of course, to operate and review with our safe operating procedures. We're beginning to look at damage assessment of lawns and curbs and fences. We're going to be starting some litter pickup soon. When the snow melts, it always seems to uncover some nasty surprises for us. And, you know, we never want to see that. And therefore, our staff are instrumental, as they always are, in helping us clean that litter up. And finally, we've changed the pedestrian crossing cycles at the signalized intersections on Old Placentia Road. So they're now automated in the hopes of reducing contact that could lead to a threat of the virus. So there's lots of stuff happening in public works. Very proud of the work that our staff is doing, and I'm sure they'll continue to do exactly that and make us even more proud.
Thank you very, very much, sir. A very thorough update. And like you say, we're in transition from the to a very busy summer season. Thank you again.
No problem. We have one more item, Your Worship, and this is to do with some updates on some capital projects. I'll try to run down through this list quicker than I perhaps normally do, if you will. The pedestrian walkway underpass remediation request for proposals and study, that's now closed and it's under review. The work has started at the glacier on the HVAC system. The Badcock Place upgrading, the design package is being finalized. St. David's Avenue, the upgrading that we talked about a minute ago, the construction tender package will be heading out on May 8th. The 2020 asphalt and concrete tender package will be out by April 24th, or I guess it's out if that's the case. The 2020 traffic signal upgrading, the tender package is being finalized. 2020 street marking, the tender has closed and it's being reviewed. For the crack, actually we awarded that earlier this evening, so my apologies there. The 2020 crack sealing tender, the contract's been awarded and we're waiting for the weather to allow us to start the work. The Topsail Road asphalt renewal package is out. For 2020, the traffic engineering standing offer as well as the project management standing offer, those are very much in the hopper, as they would say, and being finalized and reviewed. The quality assurance material testing, that tender closed on April 7th and it was awarded by April 27th. The quality assurance video inspection study, that tender closed on April 23rd. And the landscaping maintenance, that request for proposals is now closed and under review. And as you see there, there are a number of construction projects that are listed in your kit. I won't go through them all, but certainly there's lots of work happening in the city of Mount Pearl, and we have our staff who are working so very hard to thank for that.
Thank you very much. Council, any comments or questions? Councillor Antle. Oh, that was enough. Sorry. Okay. All right, let's move on to Corporate Services and Economic Development Committee. Councillor Antle, please.
Your Worship, we'll be quick. IPW is certainly a busy committee. We have for invoices for approval. There are 15 there for a total of $554,625.44. And just a couple there to bring to your attention. The wastewater flow from January to March is $147,000. And our water consumption for the month of March was $226,000 and change. But one thing I thought was interesting is number 5 for Hickman Motors. We're buying our electric car for $51,000. And I so move.
Second.
It is moved by Councillor Antle, seconded by Councillor Power. Any questions or comments about the list of invoices? Electric cars are not cheap, are they?
No,
I'll call the question. All in favor? And those opposed? Carried. Thank you.
And our payment register for the dates of April 22nd to May the 1st $2,512,406.406.01. And you can see that there's quite a few there. A big one there was $1,388,000, and that's for the city of St. John's. That's for our fire department. And there's another one there for $383.29 for St. John's Transportation Commission. And I so move.
It is moved by Councillor Antle and seconded by, no, there's no motion required. Apologies. It's for information only.
And our number 3 and our last one is for a request for tax consideration. There's 2 there. And one is for Genesis Global, and that's for $400. It's a business. It's a taxable, it's a nonprofit organization. And the other one for VOCM Cares for $1,058. And I so moved. Do you need a motion for that?
Yep. Moved by Councillor Antle, second by Councillor Power.
Second.
All in favor? And those opposed and carried. Thank you.
And that's it for our committee. And quick.
Oh, man. Wow. Community Development Committee report. Is it going to be Councillor Fry? Yes, it is. Go right ahead, please. Oh, no, Deputy Mayor Locke. Apologies.
Councillor Fry tagged out, so I'll happily join the ring there, Your Worship. I got pressure on from Councillor Antle now. I'll try to get through this expeditiously. We have 3 items here today, Your Worship. I'll take the first, and then I'll turn it over to Councillor Fry to finish off our committee report. The first item here, as you can see in our kit here, has to do with a side yard variance at a property located on 70 Moffat Road. So there was an application submitted by Edwards Developing Incorporated to construct a single detached dwelling. In this case, it has a subsidiary apartment at number 70 Moffat Road. This property is located within the residential medium density use zone. And within this particular zone, Your Worship, there are 2 minimum side yard widths of 2.4 meters and 1.2 meters. They are required here. The applicant is requesting to maintain the minimum side yard of 1.2 meters, but the request is to reduce the major side yard from the required 2.4 meters to the requested 2.19 meters. Now, in order to be able to accommodate the single dwelling with a major side yard of this width of 2.19 meters, a 9% variance would be required. The proposed development meets all other regulatory requirements of this particular subject use zone. So committee is recommending approval of this 9% variance, thereby reducing the required 2.4 meter major side yard down to 2.19 meters to accommodate a single detached dwelling. And again, the number is Moffat Road. And Your Worship, this is something that council has the discretion to do, and it's regularly used here when such requests come forth. So in keeping with our practice of the past, committee saw no issue with this. So we're recommending approval of this, and I so move.
Second.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Moved by the Deputy Mayor and second by Councillor Fry. Any comments or any questions? Yeah, this is a fairly routine matter once it goes through staff and committee. All right, I'll call that question. All in favor? And contraminded, carried. Thank you. Back to you, sir.
I'll turn it over to Councillor Fry, Your Worship, and Councillor Fry will finish our committee report. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
next on our committee report is Focus on Youth Awards. And of course, because of the COVID-19, a lot of things have been delayed or postponed. And in this particular case, for the information of public, the 2020 Focus on Youth Awards ceremony, which was scheduled for May 13th, has been postponed. The nominations for the 2019 year from January 1st to December 31st. So it is going ahead. It's just going to be postponed until we have better times, shall we say. And also,
So, Your Worship, I got a question. I'm just wondering, when you talk about it postponed, I understood that people weren't putting their nominations in because they knew it was going to be postponed. So I guess the deadline for all those nominations will be deferred and to a later date. Once we have a date, I'm sure people can still submit applications or whatever for people for the awards, because I don't know how many awards would have come in when the deadline was announced, but because it's postponed, I'm sure the deadline is postponed as well. Is that the case?
Director Collins, I think, is going to take that one.
Just a quick update. Part of the reason for the postponement is the direction from the province when it came to large gatherings. And also part of the reason for postponing is the fact when it comes to the dealing with the schools and back and forth when it comes to the youth. So the thought would be it's postponed for now. When people get back to school, hopefully in September, that we would maybe possibly do a different program. But right now, given where we are, a gathering such as what we've done traditionally in the glacier for a large sit-down meal with that many number of people, it wouldn't happen right now. So that's the idea of it being postponed at the moment, but not canceled. So it would likely be in a different format. But again, celebrating youth, because that's the important part.
Yeah.
Does that clarify for you, Councillor Stoyles? Okay, yeah, thanks for that update. Carry on. Thank you, Councillor Fry.
Okay, next on our list is the building permit and occupancy permit lists. And it's been quite active. We've had 11 building permits and occupancy permit lists, as you can see here in your kit. The total for this period is $59,100. We also have 2 building construction commercial permits, and the total for that is $19,500. And we have 1 occupancy permit. So we do have a new business, Transbec Auto Parts Retail Warehouse. And that's it for our building and permits.
So that's a motion from you and also seconded by the Deputy Mayor for those permit listings.
Just for your information, it's showing a total construction value of $78,600 to be approved. And further that the occupancy permit list be accepted as presented.
All right, so we've moved and seconded the April 20th to May 1st, 2020 residential, some commercial, and even we got a little bit, like you say, of occupancy permits. So moved by Councillor Fry, seconded by Deputy Mayor, all in favor? Contrary-minded, and thank you, carried. Okay, now we have the round table. I'm thinking it's Councillor Ledwell. Is that right, Mrs. Lewis? Yep. Councillor Ledwell, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be very brief. Of course, the COVID-19 is still with us, even though it's very positive to see the lower number of cases. In fact, a lot of zeros these days. So that's great to see. Really pleased that the residents of Mount Pearl and the residents of our province are stepping up and helping flatten the curve. As I seem to do every week, I think I just want to say a special thank you to our staff, particularly our frontline staff that I talked a fair bit about in our committee report, for continuing to work to provide the services that the residents of Mount Pearl are expecting and that they deserve and that we pride ourselves on. We have a lot of heroes on our staff, amongst all the other frontline workers, from the doctors to the grocery store workers. So I just want to give a shout out to our staff, thank them for the work that they do, and encourage all residents of Mount Pearl and otherwise to continue to stay at home when possible, follow the health guidelines that are out there, and let's all beat this thing.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. We'll move on now to next in line will be Councillor Fry, please.
On April the 28th, I just want to draw attention, it was National Day of Mourning, and commemorates workers who have been killed, injured, or suffered illness due to workplace-related hazards and incidents. And I find that especially relevant now, given the many unknowns of the coronavirus and how many essential workers put their own health at risk just to go to work every day. So I just wanted to draw attention to that, because that's something I know every year we lay a wreath on behalf of the City of Mount Pearl at the ceremony, but because of COVID, it didn't take place this year. So it's very, very worth mentioning here today. On May 4th, yesterday, was International Firefighters Day. And of course, we all know how valuable our firefighters are. They're always the first ones to respond to anything. You know, if you have a car accident or a fire, or anything at all, the firefighters are always there. And just a thank you to them, because I don't know if they ever get thanked enough. As we mentioned earlier, May 8th is World Ovarian Cancer Awareness Day. And that's something, I think we've already commented on that enough, but that's something definitely needs to be worth attention. And also, there's been a series of workshops and webinars from municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador. And I've taken in a couple. I know some of my colleagues have as well. but there are some really great suggestions given the times that we're in. And one in particular was by Dr. Catherine Laughlin. And the title of it is Placemaking Economic Development in COVID-19, Keeping Community Together While Apart and Leveraging the New Normal Post-Pandemic. Now that was really interesting. And she did have a couple of suggestions. And I just wanted to throw this out just for the information of anybody who may be listening. One of the questions that she asked is, now that we've lost it, what do we miss most about Mount Pearl? And I thought that might be a very interesting social media conversation. Also, what are the things that deserve spotlight in the community? What are people missing the most? And she also suggested this would be interesting for families, if you're looking for something to do for families, to create a time capsule, because we are living in part of history. This is history now, and this will be something that we will all look back on at some point. So to create a family time capsule now would certainly be a lot of fun to open up years from now. So they're very, very powerful options and very powerful messages. And I just wanted to bring it forward because I thought it might be something that people might be interested in sharing. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Councillor Power, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of things for me. I was going to mention International Firefighters Day yesterday. I know that sometimes we don't realize that it's not just fires that our firefighters are drawn to. It's the emergencies that they have to respond to if they're in the area, car accidents, things of that nature. They provide vital services to in-house health emergency calls as well. So definitely an extra shout out on the heels of Councillor Fry's shout out to all of our firefighters for everything they do to keep us safe each and every day. I also wanted to wish our fellow councillor, Andrew Ledwell, a happy belated 40th birthday, celebrated last week, a huge milestone. Sorry, Andrew, it was all over Facebook. Everybody knows you're 40 now. So I just wanted to extend happy birthday wishes to Andrew, of course. And this coming Sunday is Mother's Day. And of course, I wanted to extend a happy Mother's Day in advance of that to my mother, to our two mothers on council, and of course, to all of the moms that support all of our male counselors at home, and to all the mothers in our community. We don't get where we are with wonderful, supportive, loving mothers, and they certainly deserve to be celebrated. I know my parents are now in my double bubble, so I will be able to celebrate with my mom on Mother's Day in person, and I'm very grateful for that. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you very, very much. Councillor Antle.
Well, I'll try to be just as quick as everybody else, but I had to say, when Councillor Fry brought up the time capsule, I thought, like my children would say, that was my closet. So I have lots of clothes there can go for a time capsule. A couple of quick things for me. Just this week, with the food banks and the community churches, we got together and we gave a donation to the food banks. And up to last Wednesday, we raised, or the food banks here in the city of Mount Pearl, the residents in the city of Mount Pearl raised $11,324.48. And what we did last Wednesday, we cut a check for $6,989.06 and gave 3 food banks here in the city of Mount Pearl. Each food bank, that's 2 St. Vincent de Paul's and Salvation Army, each got a check for $2,329.69. Including with that was Verifin gave a $3,000 donation of food that was dropped off to each of the food banks. And this is going to continue on now till the end of June, and we're hopefully going to do this every 4 weeks. So that's been working out really well. Just a couple more things. Last week, I attended, along with the mayor, the Sports Alliance AGM here in the city of Mount Pearl. And they don't use Zoom, they use WebEx. So I must say it was a good meeting. And Jason Collins was there. Sorry about that, Jason. I missed you. Sorry. They had a good meeting. They had their election of officers, and I'd like to send a congratulations to the new chair of the Sports Alliance is Carol Ann Calloway. The vice chair is Shelley O'Brien. The treasurer is Andrew Walsh, and this is his second term. And the officers at large is Thomas Hawkins and Justin Locke. So huge congratulations for those people to go out. I mean, there's a lot of work to do a volunteer with the Sports Alliance. And I'm sure we'd all want to comment and congratulate each one of those members. Just last week, I am on the Regional Fire Committee. And we all might remember there a few weeks ago, we got a press release brought out about the regional fire that there was going to be a fire ban. Well, that fire ban wasn't specific to Mount Pearl. It was specific to the province of Newfoundland. And on that meeting, we had a meeting the next morning. Myself and the mayor and Jason showed up at that meeting, and we were talked about the regional, and Blair Tilley. And while we talked about a regional fire ban, the fire ban in the city of Mount Pearl, there are no changes. You know, the city of Mount Pearl still has, we control the fire regulations within the city of Mount Pearl, so there are no issues. One thing that did come change was there are no fireworks this year. You know, that's a provincial ban, so there's no fireworks, including Canada Day and whenever, until the province releases that new ban. On April the 22nd, part of the Northeast Avalon Joint Councils, I attended a Zoom call with Eastern Health. And this was quite interesting. Every 2 weeks, we meet with Eastern Health, and they keep us up to date with whatever's happening within the Eastern Health parameters and ask us any problems we have with the municipalities. It's mostly an FYI information, but it's good to be there to talk about, you know, what exactly is happening. We have another meeting coming up on tomorrow morning, and I'm looking forward to see what's happening there. And on May the 1st, I had a quick meeting with the library board. And basically, the library board is, so I'm just reading my notes. Sorry about that. The library board, there are no changes. You know, they look like they're not going to open no more until back to school. Whenever the school comes open, they're open. The managers are still working in all libraries. One of the things they did discuss was the if the city of Mount Pearl closed the library, well, the city of Mount Pearl has to open up the library, even though they get past this. I don't know. Did we close? I don't think we closed the library at all. I think it was a provincial ban, if I remember correctly. But if we did, we have to open it up. So moving forward, they're going to wait until the province opens that up, and it looks like it's going to be in September. And that's everything for me.
Yeah, I think we control the building and they control the operation inside. Councillor Fry, have a comment.
Just a quick question regarding the fireworks ban. Does that include personal fireworks, the use of personal fireworks as well? So no fireworks whatsoever until further notice.
And there's a question now, and I'm checking with our MHA regarding that. You know, there are no fireworks within province right now. I pretty much sure the ban of fireworks sales are also included. So there are no fireworks, straight up.
Councillor, we can, and I'll ask Mrs. Lewis if she drafted for my signature on behalf of council. We can write the new electees to the Sport Alliance. If you can help us come up with the addresses, I'd be happy on behalf of council to pen a letter of congratulations to them. So, and thank you for bringing that up and mentioning your name. Deputy Mayor Locke, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Most of what I was going to touch on, you know, has been said, so I won't repeat it. But again, congratulations to the Sport Alliance, the new board, and those coming back for all the work they do. I do want to highlight a couple of things. First of all, in our daily walk today, I did see a couple of our sidewalk cleaners or sweepers out. So it's nice to see that work is progressing there, and the sidewalks are in fact in great shape right now in the areas that I've walked. But one thing I want to mention about, I know, I think Councillor Ledwell mentioned that the litter pickup is soon to resume. Just to remind, like in the walks and that down around Team Guju, for example, and some of the other parking areas where I've been walking, the number of these blue disposable gloves that have been strewn about is really disturbing. So I just want to throw a message out to our residents, people that are using our open spaces and our walkways, that, and I have this conversation, I think I say it every year, you know, council doesn't own the open spaces and the walkways. You know, the residents own. These are common properties, and we all have a role to play in their cleanliness and tidiness and safety. So I know some of the garbage cans have been sealed over. Again, that's to expedite the process and make it easier in COVID times to pick up the garbages. But again, people can do their part to ensure that that they find a receptacle or they take the products home with them rather than just flicking them out of their windows or however they get into our properties. And also just a friendly reminder to our responsible pet owners, thank you for the job you do for picking up any deposits from your dogs or animals when you're out walking. But a friendly reminder as well to those that for some reason decide that they don't need to or they don't want to. If you don't pick it up, someone else has to deal with that or pick it up. So just a friendly reminder that we all share our responsibility in keeping our city clean. This year under COVID times, we may not be able to afford or avail of the community cleanups that we rely on every year to supplement the work by our staff. So just ask people, prevention. If you prevent what's going out there, there's less to be picked up. So that little reminder there. And the last one I want to mention, I know some other councillors have already touched on this, the doubling of the bubble that has taken place. And I know the tremendous joy and outpouring of, videos and on social media. But just again, to caution, just like our public health officials are saying that we still have to be vigilant. And the conversation that we had in our household was we joined with our older boy and with his two children. So we finally got a chance to meet and hold our grandchildren after 7 weeks. But that has even made us even more vigilant right now, that we are even more cautious and more determined to make sure that we follow the procedures. We still physically isolate when we go out. We still wear our masks if we go to stores, and we still sanitize and wash our hands regularly. So while it was exciting and a bit of a relief that you could finally, meet up with some other people in their bubbles, we still can't let our guard down. The virus is still out there. It's nice that the numbers have been low, but we got to continue that so we can hopefully get back and release some of the restrictions that are put in place. That's it for me, Your Worship. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much and well said. Councillor Stoyles, please.
Thank you, Worship. I have a number of items this evening. First couple of items I want to mention is the passing of several prominent people in our community and people who have been involved in our community, from Kevin Simmons. Kevin Simmons was well known on NTV, a personal friend of mine and his family, and want to pass along to his family my sympathies. Also, Albert Clark. Albert, again, was a personal friend. Actually, not only a personal friend, but a mentor. Albert was one of the people that certainly give me a lot of input on fundraising. And way back in the day, when I went to Albert, a number of other people in the community, Albert was one of them that, with a heart and a half, said, "Yeah, this is how you do it." And I tell you, boy, he knew how to sell a ticket, and what a great man he was at doing it. And when I heard of his passing this week, it certainly touched my heart. Also, Mr. Hogan, Ed Hogan. I didn't know Ed very well, but I know he just lived up the street on Jackman Drive and played a very important part with the unions and that in our community, and is going to be well missed here in our community. Also, I want to mention, Your Worship, the Connect Club, in the midst of this pandemic, have taken on a project called Hearts for Hearts. And you can get onto their website, and all the money they raised is going to stay here in our community to help with food banks and help with our seniors and do some vital work in our community. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I wanted for the record, is why I'm mentioning it here this evening, as I'm saying for the record, the sewer backup and the policy that has been put in place in the midst of COVID, and that our staff now has, under the leadership of Director Endel, have decided that we're not doing sewer backups anymore, and they're all going to be sourced out. And this is, Your Worship, in my opinion, an essential service, and nobody in this city appreciates the work that our staff does on a daily basis, and safety at first is at the top of my list. So I can't support what the Public Works Department has put in place. I think that the sewer backups is an essential service, and like I said, for the record, I just want to state that I don't support that. I think our staff, somebody has to do this essential service, and our staff, I'm sure, can be equipped as anybody else can, and I'm just saying it for the record. The other thing I want to talk about this evening, Your Worship, and bear with me because some of this stuff is not going to be easy this evening for me. Smallwood Drive. And I know we got an email there. I was on a conference call just about 4 o'clock when an email came in from Director Randall. And this is not the blame fault on any of our staff or to say something went wrong but something has gone wrong. The people down on Smallwood Drive, in my opinion, deserves better. Over the past 3 weeks, I've been in communication with a number of people on Smallwood Drive. And what's happening down on Smallwood Drive is Newfoundland Power has decided that they're going to upgrade the system. And that's all fine. Newfoundland Power, good corporate citizen. And in the day when Gerard Curtis was the lead hand in doing projects with the city, I don't think this would have happened. My opinion only, and that's all I can speak about. But whether it should be planning or engineering or whomever, the notifications have not gone out as of today. I've spoken to many people, but this morning I took it on myself, and last night I went down to look at the lighting and said, yeah, well, I support them doing the change, but it's not just they're not just going to put new poles on. What they want to do is take the poles from the back of Smallwood Drive on the brook, and they want to move them out to the front of the property. Now, nobody ever communicated that with the residents down there. None of them knew what was going on until we started digging into it and that. And I think that somebody missed the boat in that. Not, like I said, I don't want to lay blame, but the people down on Smallwood Drive deserves to know what's going on. I mean, I think, and I know we got COVID, and I know that we can't have a public briefing now, but I'm hoping that before Light and Power gets the approval, that the residents down there will be contacted. And I saw the last note saying that the residents received, or they're going to receive this note, and they're going to tell them. Well, they haven't been informed. And on every single line down there was a little red stick. I was down there last night and again this morning. There's a stick down there stating where the poles are going to go. So somebody has missed the boat, and the people on that street have not been informed enough, as far as I'm concerned. I've spoken to many of them. I even had the privilege this morning to speak with Mr. Pat O'Keefe, a former councillor. And I said to Mr. O'Keefe, Mr. O'Keefe, do you know what's going on down on Smallwood Drive? And he said, oh yes, he said, I got something in my mailbox 3 or 5 weeks ago, he said, or 6 weeks ago. I'm not sure how long it was now, Lucy, but they were going to trim the trees behind the thing. He knew nothing as of 9:30 this morning that anything was changing down there. And what Light and Power want to do is take all the poles from behind, and know what they told the people that contacted Light and Power and contacted the lady that's looking after it, and I don't want to mention her name. She told them to go and look at what's going on out in Larkall Street, because that's what's going to happen down your way. We're going to bring in a better service, and there's going to be better lighting, and I'm all for better service and I'm all for better lighting. But what I'm not in favor of is the people down there have not been notified in a timely manner. And I'm just stating it for the record. And
Can I ask a question, Councillor?
Yep.
So we thought the letters went out in March. They weren't sent out? Or they didn't arrive? Wow.
Nobody down there knows anything about letters. And the vague thing that went out was talking to them that went in according to Mr. O'Keefe and people I've spoken to, was just telling them that trees were being trimmed, nothing about the poles being moved, nothing about it being moved in front of the driveways and now going to be on the front of the houses instead of the back of their houses. You call the people down there. I've done it and they don't know nothing about it. So someone surely got and that's why I spoke to Mr. O'Keefe today, because I said somebody like him who's been around and a former councillor, he knew nothing about it. So somebody dropped the gun, whether it was Light and Power, and I don't think it should be Light and Power, because if Light and Power is coming in with a proposal, it should be our staff, and I assume it would be planning. I don't know, but somebody should be informing them people, this is what's going on, and it should be a public hearing. I'm only saying.
I just want to ask the directors, is there a process, like Newfoundland Power would have to draw a permit for this, I'm thinking, so would there be an opportunity during that permitting process to do some engagement, or Newfoundland Power to do some engagement with the residents? I've had only 2 interactions with residents, gave them the explanation, and didn't receive any further feedback. Director Rantle, I think you have your hands up.
Yes, Your Worship. Newfoundland Power would apply for permits for any type of upgrading in our city. They've applied for a permit in this case. We're in the midst of reviewing it. There's been notice made at this point in time.
So they're like, we won't just be, and I'm just looking for an answer here in terms of, it's not automatic. Do we have some say in all of this at the end of the day in the permitting process? I mean, the standard of the subdivision of the day was backyard servicing. The standard of the subdivision, if I can use that term, over in the Park Avenue area, when you drive around, you see lots of front serviced telephone poles. So does that subdivision standard stay in place for many years to come unless the city approves otherwise?
Yes, we would have a say. At this point in time, Newfoundland Power is seeking our permission through a permit process. They've identified challenges with maintaining reliability in the service and power distribution that's currently on Smallwood Drive, as in it's at the rear yards. They've identified concerns, reliability factors. I think the system is something in the 60s when it was built, and they want to do some upgrading. Their proposal to upgrading is to install new power lines through the front services, but continue with rear yard servicing and new poles and new LED lighting and improve the lighting on Smallwood Drive as well. That's what they propose to do. It's normally to have a permit process that's reviewed within the engineering division. That's what we're doing. There's been some concerns raised, as Councillor Stoyles has identified, with some of the residents there. Newfoundland Power has advised us that they've communicated, they've told us that they've communicated with the residents via a drop information package to those residents. If it's not adequate, which I understand it's not, we are working with Newfoundland Power to ensure an improved additional communication before we consider this for a permit process.
So could we do a drop to all the residents just to say, you know, have you received notification from Newfoundland Power, and what are your thoughts and feelings? And could the committee meet with Newfoundland Power via Zoom, of course, given the circumstances, just to get a little bit more, for us to give a little bit more direction on engagement? And I guess my question would be for the committee, is this the only alternative? The question then would be flipped to Newfoundland Power. So they want to put it out front, not because the line in behind is I know it must be in bad shape, but is it impossible to put the line behind? Because, you know, I guess to Councillor Stoyles' point, and we have to start thinking ahead. It could be your neighborhood or mine. I'm talking to members of council here, of course, and you could find tomorrow that they're like, is this going to become the standard for all future pole replacements at the end of the day? And you know, if this is a change in their philosophy, I think we should have a sit down with them, and it you know, this could be citywide, not just for one particular street or neighborhood. So would the committee please meet with Newfoundland Power? Would that be, council, would you give that blessing as a course of action going forward? Director, are you comfortable with that?
I'm fine with that, Your Worship.
Councillor Fry.
Yeah,
I'm not finished. You've got something else, because I'm not finished with my.
We're coming back to you, Councillor. Yeah.
This is further to what you were speaking of, Councillor Stoyles, because I just want some clarification, Dr. Randall. what's happening on Smallwood Drive? Are they putting new poles? Is that why they're marked?
Councillor Fry, they're putting on Smallwood Drive new poles in some places. In some places, they're replacing existing poles as well. So it's a combination of things.
Okay, I have a concern here now because I was contacted by a resident on April the 30th. And I knew nothing about what was happening on Smallwood Drive. And his inquiry was, what's happening with the pegs. Of course, he was curious. So I was told at that point, and I have it here in front of me, the pegs are to mark locations of our underground utilities. There was nothing said to me then about poles. So I went back to the resident and I said, well, this is just to mark underground utilities. And now I find out that it's for poles. Like this is really upsetting. And I don't appreciate this. First of all, we should know about it in advance. So if the resident inquires about it, then we can at least be able to explain about it. But to be given wrong information makes me look very poor. And I don't appreciate that.
Well, I'm sorry. The information I provided about that, there was a question about what our forces were doing. And what I explained was our forces were marking out our underground utilities. But if there's a question about pegs on some people's poles that might be marked in relation to Newfoundland Power putting in poles, that's what Newfoundland Power was doing. There was two groups of work that were doing, putting services there.
So we're marking our underground services so Newfoundland Power can plan where they're putting their poles. Is that what you're saying?
So
Exactly.
they don't understand if there's any interference with our underground utility. None of this work is being done. It's being proposed to be done by Newfoundland Power.
Well, they got it all done though, Jerry. Jerry, they got it all, the councillor, the director, Handel, they got it all done. They got it all marked out where the poles are going. And they're telling people, this is what we're doing. Go out and look at what they're doing on Larkhall Street. Is the people and is the residents on Sunrise Avenue going to have any say? That's my biggest question. Because right now, from my understanding, no, the residents have no say. We've already done the work and our staff have been down there for a long time marking out this. And when Councillor Fry contacted to find out what was going on down there, surely someone should have said to her, bye, they're going to move the poles to the front. Maybe somebody should tell us that, right? I only found out because people contacted me. Anytime I bring something to this council table, let me tell you, I'm bringing it because people brought it to me. I'm not bringing it because Lucy made it up, because no, I didn't make it up. I had a number of people down there that contacted me. And yes, I contacted Mr. O'Keefe today because I figured if anyone could give me an answer, if anybody knew what was going on down there, he's down there 55 years, surely God, he would know. And he knew nothing about it. And yes, it's upsetting. So I had my piece and I want to make sure the residents down there have some say and they know what's going on in their own neighborhood, because it's ridiculous that this has gone this far and all the work is being done and nobody really has communicated with them residents. That's where I'm coming from.
One last comment from Councillor Antle, I believe.
Thank
We'll
you
come back.
very much, Worship. And Lucy, I agree with you 100%. I did get calls from residents on Smallwood Drive also, and I did walk that area. And I thought, and I was going to bring it up tonight in our committee of whole, right? But I think that we have to bring it to committee. I told the residents that nothing was going to happen until we approved it. I hope Newfoundland Light and Power don't do nothing until we approve this.
She got all the work done down there.
You know, I noticed, yes, Lucy, I do notice this marked out and this kind of stuff, but I told the residents that, nothing's going to happen until we approve it. So I hope it's going to go back to committee before they start digging holes and moving poles. That's all I want to say. So I'll wait for a committee.
Okay, let's wrap that up. It'll go to committee and Newfoundland Power can justify what they're trying to do. And maybe we can help foster some communication. Councillor Stoyles again.
I have one other issue that I want to bring forward tonight, and under full disclosure, and I'm going to repeat that, under full disclosure, tomorrow morning, I will be contacting Municipal Affairs this past weekend and talk about mental health. This past weekend and the past few days has been very trying at the most. So tomorrow morning, I have every intentions of contacting Municipal Affairs concerning the investigation of the former CEO or who's off on leave. The Telegram had an article on the weekend, and And then I got a disturbing email on Sunday evening from somebody who didn't identify themselves, who said they were staff and work with the city, and a number of other things have happened. So tomorrow morning, and like I said, for full disclosure, I will be going to municipal affairs tomorrow morning. And that's it for me, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. I guess that's the end of our council meeting, folks. I have nothing further to add. You've discussed all the items on the agenda tonight, and we had a good roundtable. So I'll call for a motion, please, to wrap up the meeting. Councillors Power and Antle, all in favor? And we are adjourned. So we're gonna go into committee of the whole now, I think, with our agenda there. So do we sign back in, Miss Lewis? Okay, we'll see you then. All right, bye.